Hello, brothers and sisters in Christ. I hope you all are doing well and are blessed in our King Jesus Christ. So, I wanted to do my presentation on a couple of different cemeteries in the Allegheny County area, and that would be Western Maryland. So, I'm just getting into slideshow mode here. All right, so Cumberland, Maryland has a couple of cemeteries that are serve as a home to some very peculiar monuments. Um, so the two cemeteries that I examined were first the Davis Memorial Cemetery in Cumberland and the Rose Hill Cemetery also in Cumberland. But um, there are some Civil War monuments that I actually wanted to focus on since that is my specialty area because what we're about to see is um, a microcosm in the fact that the Civil War is still being fought today, and it really didn't end in 1865, but it's being fought ideologically and spiritually in our present. Um, in our area, we have an organization called the Cumberland Historic Cemetery Organization that has been quite controversial over the past number of years. In 2019, there was an individual who actually wrote a letter to the editor, I believe, who called out the Cumberland Historic Cemetery organization in saying that they were a racist organization because um, they promote Confederate soldiers as patriots in the same league as American veterans, um like the Union troops and other Americans, like those who fought in the Revolutionary War and vice versa. But we'll examine that kind of a little bit all throughout the presentation. But in general, with my research, first we're just going to be covering the first cemetery that was mentioned, the Davis Memorial Cemetery. So, in general, at both cemeteries, there's actually a lot of Christian iconography. Um, but this monument on the right here is the Davis Memorial Monument dedicated to American troops who fought. It's a breathtaking memorial with that giant wooden cross. I'm always a sucker for things like that. But over here on the left, there was another like portion of the cemetery, I believe, like right across the street, that had this statue. It looked like Mary holding baby Jesus. Um, so in general, this was a cemetery with more recent graves. Um, and compared to Rose Hill, the monuments and graves were not as extravagant. That's one thing I definitely noticed. Um, but we'll cover that in just a second. But Davis Memorial Cemetery actually has one of the most unique monuments in the country, the Monument to the Unborn. Um, I believe this was unveiled in 2004, and this monument is dedicated to all of the babies that have been um, killed through abortion. And this was a monument that was actually funded by the and provided by the Cumberland Historic Cemetery Organization. And it's a beautiful monument, very powerful. Um, and there's like four different sides of it, so you see like what's listed on the four sides. So that was also very interesting. These particular displays that we've covered so far shows that Cumberland is a very conservative as a culture and as a society, and it hasn't changed really over time because there's still deep Christian roots within Cumberland and Allegheny County in general. Um, but kind of what I was alluding to earlier, like with graves in the more recent cemeteries, like they're a lot more simple in grandeur than some the older graves in Rose Hill that we'll be seeing in the next couple slides. But I mean, you see some that have a conventional Christian cross dedicated to it, and just your general run of the mill graves, as you can see here on the left in terms of headstones. Um, but now this slide here is the beginning of my investigation into the graves at Rose Hill Cemetery. Um, so the first two the first two pictures here on the left side. Um, This is the same grave, but it was actually subject to vandalism. As you can see, the cross was kicked off or damaged from the top of its pedestal. So this could be indicative of like the decline, somewhat of a decline of the Christian faith, or maybe it was just your average individual who just wanted to cause destruction and just came here to unleash go on a rampage, whatever you want to call it. But when you look over to the two photos on the right, you start seeing more more of an exceptional kind of grandeur, like with taller crosses, um these statues here. It's very interesting with the compare and contrast. um in particular, these three here. The McCaig family is a really big family with a deep history in the Cumberland area. And then that you just see this cross here, which is just the craftsmanship is just amazing. But over here on the right, the Wellington Monument, this individual actually served as a congressman in the during the 54th Congress, which I thought that was really cool when I saw that. So we're seeing like a significant like contrast with how like extravagant their monuments are in this cemetery versus the first one that we examined. Um, Now with the Civil War, this is the same monument. This is the top of it here, but then these are the gravestones that are around the monument. But this is a Civil War monument dedicated to the Grand Army of the Republic, and um, it just when I saw it, I just thought it was an absolutely beautiful monument. Um, and it there was a time when if there was one substantial difference that I could see between like the older cemetery and now, aside from the extravagance of their monuments, is just that there seemed to be a significant degree more of a respect through the like bigger monuments that were dedicated to troops um versus the ones that we see in more recent years. Um Cumberland in general has had a very rich transportation industry. So this region at one time was very prosperous, and in particular, with the turn of the 20th century, it became a an industrial powerhouse with the rubber industry, particularly with the Kelly Springfield Rubber Company. But then that industry eventually left, gradually being phased out in the 1980s and I believe into the 1990s. And ever since that company left, it was the largest employer. Cumberland hasn't really economically recovered at all. So it's just the economy's just been a major issue to the present day. Um, and then we just have some last examples here of some of the other monuments that I came across, like this cross on the far right, uh, this statue here in the middle, with it was dedicated to someone's wife, which just speaks volumes. And then I guess we kind of have our own like replica Washington monument. I guess I couldn't quite remember who this was dedicated to, but the monuments in this cemetery were just breathtaking. But I want to conclude with revisiting the Cumberland Historic Cemetery Organization. On the right hand side, that's their headquarters, and as you can see, a Confederate flag is hanging there. And then they also have in some cemeteries, this was at Rose Hill as well. This was uh, a Confederate grave decorated with Confederate iconography. And there has been a pretty significant debate since 2019, perhaps even before, just with the whole like Confederate flag and statue display debate. What do we do with them? How should we remember uh, the Confederate soldiers that rose up in arms against the United States and different things like that? I mean, when we look at cemeteries, um, some of us just look at them as memorializing the dead, of course, but sometimes they're a powerful symbol of whose story is being told here. And basically, you know, this kind of thing has been like a living manifestation of the lost cause, particularly when you look at what used to be called, well, we're getting ready to have Veterans Day, but with Memorial Day in particular, it began as a tradition that came out of the Civil War, and we have used to be known as Decoration Day. It it started in the South, and then it became a thing to remember all soldiers who fought in every American war. And so the debate still stands: whose story are we telling? So that's basically what I had in terms of my presentation and the research that I examined. I hope you find this perspective very insightful. I mean, with this going on in my local community, it's definitely very interesting. Um, Graveyards can be like just examining graves and memorials can be a lot more than just um, looking at a record of of when somebody was born and when they passed away. There's a lot more to the story. So thank you all for listening, and may God richly bless you all. And I'm looking forward to looking at your other videos as well. You all take care. Be blessed.